Things continue to heat up. The Fires of Heaven, Book 5 of the Wheel of Time series, isn't anyone's favorite or least favorite book in the series, but for one of the final pre-slog entries in the series, it's got plenty of action, drama, and character. Most importantly, it keeps up the pace from The Shadow Rising as more characters step into the light and more of the world is revealed. So let's pick things back up with our boy. Rand is still in the Aiel city of Rhuidean, along with Moiraine, Lan, Egwene, Mat, and the Aiel who are willing to stand with him. But they can't stay there for long before the Dark One attacks again. Shadows spawn attack, and Mat is almost poisoned to death, but when Rand saves his life with the Forbidden Weave, Moiraine makes a bold move and swears fealty to him so she can properly explain why the weave he used is forbidden. Rand has become more independent over the past few books, but he still needs guidance. Moiraine, by contrast, has noticed this, and realizing she can't control or manipulate him, is prepared to take a step back. It demonstrates a shift in the balance of power. Whether it will lead to a good or bad outcome is anyone's guess at this point. But even with that, Homeboy can't stay in one place. Couladin is still out there, taking the war to the Westlands and breaking many Aiel custom in the process. The world continues to change, and it's getting more dramatic. The Aiel as a whole aren't what they used to be. Many have turned to the Shaido, and others who haven't joined Rand have just left. Thankfully, there's still tons who have stayed with him, but it's a bit of a problem. Moving across the world, we've also got the newly seated Elida desperate to maintain her power. Rebel Aes Sedai are plotting to take her down, as well as other forces each trying to build up their own political or military power. We don't see too much of it in this book, but the acknowledgement of the greater geopolitical changes brought about by the hero's actions does a lot to make the world feel more lived in, and constantly in motion. Not only that, but seeing characters we know establish ties to these forces effectively sets them up for important roles in the story down the line. In other news, Mat is finally stepping up, albeit reluctantly. He tries to turn away, which Rand lets him, but only because he's convinced fate will step in and bring him back. Which it does. Not just because he can't stand seeing a bunch of people die, but also because he's finally able to use those tactical skills he picked up. It took 4.5 books, but he got there. He's finally doing some things. That's Wheel of Time! Something that surprised me looking back on this book is the amount of Forsaken plotting against the heroes. Lanfear is still here, Moghedien is harassing Nynaeve and Egwene, Samael and Ravine are both plotting against Rand. But as we begin to see the Forsaken, though they communicate, are all just doing their own thing and are only effective due to their immense power and manipulation. Despite their power, they're just a bunch of selfish assholes. Though speaking of Nynaeve, she's here and she's just as stubborn as ever. But the everything is starting to get to her, and we see signs of change as the challenges she's met with demanded of her. Even if the change is slow. Elaine's with her too, and she's finally stepping up. It's not too much, but like Mat, she just needs time. And a lot of it. Characters in this series can take quite a bit of time to change. It's because the right situations have not come up for them to change. Though this series does have structural issues, as we'll see more of in future videos. And while I think the series is a masterpiece, it is a very flawed masterpiece. Now before we get to the climax, I should probably address the wolf not in the room. Perrin isn't in this one, like, at all. Yeah, from here on out, certain characters can be absent from whole books. Get used to it. Now for the climax. This book doesn't quite get the many simultaneous climaxes of Book 4, sadly, but it still manages to build to a peak that's every bit as strong as the first 3 books. Rand and those with him moving into a big battle, but it culminates in a grand clash of magic that marks a notable shift in the character arcs, especially the dragon. Meanwhile, Nynaeve gets her own challenge that interweaves with Rand's, and marks her growth in her own arc. Not the most memorable climax in the series, but still, a good one. As for the ranking, this is the last book we'll get before the infamous slog starts to show its signs. With that, it's still definitely very good and has some important setup for later in the series, so unlike the slog, it does serve as an overall great entry in the series on its own. With that, it gets the A tier. Definitely worth the time. So, what did you think of the book? Was there anything I forgot to mention? Whatever your thoughts, please comment them below. I am Kieran Mythos, and I'll see you all next time.